What if the child you saved from death's edge grew up to spit in your face? Stick around to the end of this tale, because the twist waiting there will leave you stunned. The wind swept off the Atlantic, rattling the windows of my cottage in Havenport, Maine, a quiet fishing town where the sea churned with restless secrets. It was late November, the sky heavy with gray, and I stood in the kitchen, watching steam rise from the kettle on the stove. At 45, my hands told a story of sacrifice. Calluses from scrubbing floors, faint scars from diner burns, a slight tremble from stitching quilts late into the night. For 21 years, I'd poured my life into raising Daniel, the son I'd adopted at 1, a fragile infant abandoned in a dumpster with a heart defect that painted his lips blue. I'd nursed him through surgeries, worked endless shifts to fund his education, and left my marriage to keep him alive. A choice that cost me everything, but gave him a chance I'd never had as an orphan. That day, as I returned home with news that could have rewritten our future, I discovered how little it mattered to him. I'd driven back from Portland, where I'd spent 8 years as a live-in housekeeper for Eleanor Grayson, a widow whose warmth had softened my edges. She'd passed 2 months ago at 68, leaving me $8 million in a trust fund, a gift born of her gratitude for my loyalty through her solitary days. I'd quit, not from weariness, but from a yearning to come home, to rest, to be near Daniel and his wife, Lauren, as they built their life. The house I'd bought them, a weathered 2-story near the docks, stood at Havenport's edge, its shingles peeling under the coastal wind. I stepped inside, my suitcase thudding against the floor, a spark of hope in my chest. "Daniel," I called, my voice echoing in the cramped living room. "I'm back. I won't be working for Eleanor anymore." He emerged from the kitchen, a shadow of the boy I'd raised. At 22, he was lean and wiry, his dark hair messy, his blue eyes, once so trusting, now sharp with resentment. "You quit?" he snapped, his voice cutting like the tide against the cliffs. "That was $8,000 a month, Mom. What's your plan? Laze around and live off us?" The air turned frigid, his words slashing through the fragile joy I'd carried home. Lauren lounged on the couch, her dark hair swept over one shoulder, a smirk curling her lips. At 21, she was a Whitmore, daughter of Patricia, 48, a retired librarian with a tight smile, and George, 50, a town councilman who'd always viewed us as lesser. "Daniel's right," Lauren said, her tone cold. "We're starting a family soon. Bills are piling up. You can't drop out now." I gripped the counter, steadying myself. "I came back to help. Lauren, you said you're trying for a baby. I thought I could cook, clean, be there for you both." Lauren's laugh was brittle, piercing. "Help? Postpartum care isn't sweeping floors, Grace. It's skilled work. You're not trained." Patricia, hovering by the window like a hawk, chimed in with a sneer. "Raising a child is a science, not some amateur chore. You need credentials, not a mop." Their disdain hit hard, a reminder of how they'd always seen me, beneath them, a servant in their tale. I hadn't told them about the money, not yet. I'd hoped it could bridge the gap, maybe earn Daniel respect from Lauren's family. Instead, they saw me as a leech. "I'm 45, I said, forcing calm into my voice. "I think it's time I rested. Retired." Lauren scoffed, tossing her hair. "Retired? With what? No savings, no pension?" The jab stung. I'd wanted to save years ago, but they'd begged me to pay off their mortgage, promising to look after me later. Daniel's jaw clenched. "You shouldn't have quit, Mom. We need that cash. You're young. Work another 20 years. Talk retirement at 65. 20 years." The number carved a void in me, erasing decades of sacrifice, my youth, my marriage, my dreams, for a son who saw me as a tool. Patricia's tone softened, a baited hook. Grace, there's no space here long term, but I know a family needing a live-in aid. Decent pay, free room. You've done it before. Lauren grinned, predatory. Perfect. Send us your wages. Everyone wins. My blood chilled. They didn't want me home. They wanted my income, a stream they'd tap dry. I'm not working for anyone else, I said, my voice firm. Ever. Patricia's eyes narrowed, scheming. Fine. There's a senior home nearby. Kitchen shifts, cleaning. Earn your keep there. Lauren rolled her eyes. Better than us footing your bills. I turned to Daniel, my last tether. You'd send me to scrub floors in a retirement home just to eat? He avoided my gaze, his voice flat. It's fair, Mom. You've always wanted freedom. This way, we're square. Square. The word splintered something in me, a flood, breaking free. I gave you everything, I whispered, tears spilling. Emptied my savings for this house, raised you alone, and you call me a burden? He kicked my suitcase, rage flaring in his face. You chose that. If you hadn't left Dad, I'd be rich now. You owe me, Grace. Forever. I stared at him. The boy I'd pulled from death's grasp. The son I'd loved beyond measure. He didn't know I'd left James to save him, that every tear was for his life. You're wrong, I said, hoisting my suitcase. I don't owe you a thing. We're done. Patricia grabbed my arm, her nails biting. He's your son. You can't abandon him, Lauren sneered. What kind of mother does that? I shook her off, steady. The kind who's done being trampled. I stepped into the dusk, their shouts fading, curses of my heartlessness, threats of regret. The sea roared, swallowing their voices. I didn't turn back. That night, I checked into the Seaview Inn, Havenport's finest, its oak floors gleaming under brass chandeliers. I sank into the plush bed, betrayal a heavy stone, but beneath it, defiance flickered. I called Eleanor's attorney, Thomas Reed, 55. His voice, a steady lifeline. Grace, the trust is yours. $8 million, locked in last week. What's next? Protect it, I said, and keep it secret. I'd hidden the fortune, a mercy. If Daniel knew, his greed would have sharpened its teeth. Morning found me in the hotel cafe, coffee steaming as fog cloaked the harbor. I replayed my life, nights in ERs watching Daniel's chest rise and fall, selling my mother's ring for his meds, Eleanor's last words. You're enough, Grace. I opened my laptop, scouring luxury listings along the coast. Cliffside Estates beckoned, an elite gated community, its home starting at $1 million, perched above the rocky shore. I booked a tour, craving a new beginning. That afternoon, I arrived at the showroom, a glass fortress humming with wealth. Sophie, a timid 19-year-old assistant, greeted me. Welcome, ma'am. I'll show you around. Before we moved, a sharp voice sliced through. Claire Whitmore, 25, Patricia's niece, Lauren's cousin, her heels striking like flint. Grace? Claire's sneer was venomous, her blonde bun tight. Here for free coffee, housekeeper? The room stilled, eyes darting. I'm here to buy, I said calmly. She laughed, shrill. You? Don't waste my time. She waved at security. Get her out, I held firm. I want your manager. Alex, 32, the sales manager, approached, his suit crisp, his tone polite. Ma'am, we need verification. I handed my pre-cleared documents. Claire snatched them, shouting far, $5 million? Fake. She's a con. I opened my banking app. $8 million glowed on the screen. Gasps rippled, a tide turning. Claire paled, stammering, It's a trick! Alex snapped. Enough, Claire. I turned to Sophie. I'll buy through her. The big villa, furnished, ready. Sophie beamed. Really? Yes, I said. Let's sign. The deal closed. $1.5 million, swift and sure. Claire muttered, dirty money, but I left, keys in hand, unbowed. The next day, Daniel called furious. You got Claire fired? Her family's on us now. Fix it. I laughed coldly. Your problem. We're done. His voice turned sly. Who's your new boss? They're loaded, huh? Greed sniffed the air. Doesn't matter, I said. You're gone. I blocked him, Lauren, and the Whitmores. But he lingered, haunting Cliffside's gates, a soggy figure begging, Mom, forgive me. Locals filmed Havenport's lost son, a pitiful act. I hired a driver, gliding past in tinted silence, his cries lost to the wind. Then he dug deeper, finding James, 47, my ex, who called weary. Grace, Daniel showed up crying, I'm his dad. I proved I'm not. Paternity test. He's unraveling, but I kept your secret. Thanks, I said, steeling myself. I expected a confrontation, but he went darker. Whispers spread, neighbors' stares sharpened. Sophie called, shaky. Grace, it's online. Don't let it break you. On StreamNet, Daniel's channel blared. How my mother abandoned me. Tears streaked his face as he lied. She ditched me in college, ignored my wedding, and now she's rich and I'm nothing. Donations flowed, pity fueling his scam. My name, Grace Turner, became a curse in the comments. Rage flared, but I held back, plotting. That night, I launched The Truth About Daniel, flooding his chat with thousands to steal his crowd. Hear my side, I typed, dangling $100,000 in giveaways. Viewers surged, a digital storm. I faced the camera, resolute. I cut ties with Daniel, not from cruelty, but necessity. I inherited $8 million from Eleanor Grayson, who saw me as family. I meant to share it with him and Lauren. But when I came home, jobless, they cast me out, called me a burden. I showed the trust papers and Eleanor's will. Legal, mine, no scam. Comments buzzed, shock, doubt. Why ditch him, one asked. I played his voice. Work for some old guy, Mom. Send us the cash. Then the truth. He's not my son by blood. I adopted him at 1, saved him from a dumpster, and left James when he refused him. I paid for his life, surgeries, college, this house. I uploaded papers, adoption records, hospital bills, a trail of sacrifice. He kicked me out of my own home and demanded I work till 65. Who abandoned whom? The tide turned fiercely. He's a leech! She's a saint! Viewers stormed Daniel's stream, raging. You used her! His face blanched live. She's lying. If I'm not hers, why'd she bother? I answered, because I loved you, but love isn't slavery. His channel crashed, banned, his lies exposed. I sued, won damages, and reclaimed the house, mine again. Months later, I stood in that living room, sunlight warming the floor I'd earned. Lauren left Daniel, fleeing the ruin. Word trickled back. He'd fled to Canada, a broken figure gnawing scraps by bins, raving online, his sanity frayed. I felt no joy, just release. I sold the villas, profiting, and bought a lakeside cottage in West Havenport, simple and serene. At 47, wisteria framed my porch, coffee scented the air, and my easel waited under the pines. I painted, walked the shore, and lived for myself. A neighbor asked, "Do you regret adopting him?" I smiled, the sea breeze soft against my skin. Number I regret not seeing sooner that love shouldn't cost my soul. I gave him life. He chose to squander it. That lesson sank deep. Devotion is a gift, not a chain. You can pour your heart into someone, but when they repay you with scorn, the bravest act is to walk away and reclaim your worth. If this story stirred you, hit that like button, share it with someone who's felt the sting of giving too much, and drop a comment. Have you ever had to let go to save yourself? Subscribe now for more tales of resilience and redemption. Let's keep these truths alive, because every heart deserves to heal.